guys, welcome to Paying IT Forward, where we have nuanced conversations about the IT industry from people actually living it. My name is Obi Osai, and I'm your host, and this is our very first episode. So, very excited, very nervous at the same time, but yeah, I'm finally doing this, so it's all good news for me. So for the very first episode, I had the opportunity to bring on and speak to a colleague and friend of mine, Roland. He's a software engineer. He has 6 years of experience in the IT industry. He's worked across different sectors. He's worked in gaming. Well, he's just recently started working in gaming, but he's worked in payments. He's worked in transportation. He's worked in human resources as well. So we get into all of that, the differences as a software engineer working in those industries, the different challenges that it brings, different team setups, the different team dynamics that you can expect, the different organizational structures that you can expect. He's also worked in both conventional organizations and agile organizations. So we get into talking about what agile is and the contrast between that and conventional way of working, so that was really great. Talking about team dynamics as well, we spoke about the tension between a software engineer and a scrum master or a product owner like myself, and how that's sort of necessary, in my opinion, to sort of be an effective team and work for better results collaboratively. So that was, some great stuff we got into there. And another thing we spoke about that I feel is relevant is, how to break into the industry right now as a software engineer. There's always this massive question: how do you go about it? Do you focus on qualifications? Do you go through boot camps? Do you go back to university for a degree course? Do you just try to get experience? And he sort of just lays it out. He has quite a unique story, I think, that any software engineer would sort of enjoy, or anyone would enjoy, to be fair. So he sort of lays it out, gives his own personal advice on how to go about it, and the key things, the most important things to sort of be aware of and take note of in breaking into the industry, as well as growing in the industry. And I think the final part of the conversation was bringing things back to the mental aspect of things. We speak about self-sabotage, the imposter syndrome, how to build confidence and passion, which we identified are major drivers to sustaining and maturing in your career. And I don't think this just applies to the IT industry. This probably applies across multiple industries. But yeah, we go into all of that, and it was a really fun conversation. I was really happy to have him on. And I definitely think any software engineer out there, if you're early stages, any stage, to be honest, I think you have a thing or two to learn from this conversation. So yeah, do enjoy, do subscribe, do give feedback. Yeah, welcome to Paying IT Forward. All right, it's recording now. How's it going, man?
Yeah, doing all right, man. How's your end?
I'm all right, man. How's your day? Let's start from there.
Yeah, my day was cool though. Pretty much just work all day.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really had that many tasks to do at work. This past week, it's been a bit quiet. But today, I was just pretty much fixing some bugs that we had in our system. That was pretty much it, really.
So you just started a new job, right?
Yeah, I started working in a company called Azurion. They basically
Azure.
make mostly video games, but they call themselves like, what do they usually say? Like a distribution slash entertainment company. So they have like loads of game companies that they actually bought. So Azurion is more like a holding company now. They basically have loads of game companies that they bought. So the team I actually work with now is just a game company that they actually bought a long time ago. I think it's called Yoda Games. So we have two games. One is Governor of Poker 3, and the other one is Monopoly Poker. Governor of Poker is like number 3, is the third ranking. I think it's number 3 in the world when it comes to casino games. Then
Yeah.
Monopoly Poker is the one I actually work on. That one is like number 32 or something. I can't even remember the number in the world.
But
So
what platforms are these games on?
yeah, they're on App Store. They're on also on Google Play Store as well. And we're trying to get it into some other stores as well. But now it's just yeah, both those ones. Yeah,
So they're like mobile games, right? Like
yeah,
mobile
mobile
phone
games.
game.
Yeah, mobile phone
Okay.
games. Yeah, you can't play it
Okay.
on the web. It's not a web game. It's just mobile phone.
Okay. So your company, they basically bought other companies that do video games, and you're working with one of the companies they acquired to extend the capabilities of the game.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
They basically have a vision to become this entertainment hub. You know, so they have that's basically the vision. So they have a list of companies that obviously fits the vision. So they just buy the company. It's as
Okay.
simple as that. They're more like a holding company. We have to just buy different game companies that actually fits our vision. That's pretty much it.
So so what's it like? So what's your role? Like, are you software developer, software engineer? Because
Yes,
that
I'm a software engineer. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one. Those
is
two
tricky,
things.
isn't
Software
it?
engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a software engineer,
Okay.
and yeah, I work on the back end predominantly. Well, I wouldn't say predominantly. I would say only work on the back end. I don't work on the front end at all in this company. Um, yeah, pretty much a back end software engineer in the company. And in my team, we use two languages, Java and PHP for the back end. So we have the API in PHP. We also have parts of the code in Java as well.
So what's backend work for a gaming company like? So normally backend is like they that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, as maybe software engineers would already know, or
Mm.
well, let me not say software engineers. Let me put it in layman's terms.
Yes,
Um,
please.
best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, a backend is basically what the user cannot see. So the
Mm-hmm.
front end is basically what you can see when you're using the application. But in this scenario, when you're playing the game, what you can see is what you call the front end, and what you can't see is what you call the back end. I can give you like an example.
Yeah.
Let's assume you want to update your profile. Maybe you want to change your name or whatever you want to change your profile, your picture, whatever. So the front end, you basically see different fields saying first name, last name, then you see a
Mm-hmm.
button saying save. So what happens when you press that button save?
Okay.
That's the back end. So all that magic that happens in the back end when you
Mm-hmm,
click
mm-hmm.
on buttons or yeah, when you click on buttons in in the front end, that's basically where the back end comes in. So yeah, that's basically it really. What you can't see, the actions and the behind that you can't see is what the back end is.
So I'm imagining I'm playing a game now and like I'm collecting points. You know these games where you go, you're just getting points. All those
Yeah,
points are racking up. They're being stored somewhere on the back end, right? Isn't it? On
exactly.
my profile.
Yes.
So the back end work, like for you now, doesn't include any like of the animation or the graphics, nothing like that.
No, that's all front end. We also have artists as well that work on
Aha,
animations
yeah.
and yeah. So you have different roles in a team. It depends on the team. Like our team, the gaming company, we have the front end.
Hmm.
Those actually build the UI. We have the artists as well that build the players. Like players, we also have this uh, person in the middle called Mr. Monopoly because our game is Monopoly Poker.
Yeah.
So we have this guy in the middle called Mr. Monopoly. That's Mr. Monopoly in the actual Monopoly by Hasbro's. Um, yeah, so the artist actually gives us some sort of animation for it. Then the front end implements it into the game.
A- And you render it in 3D, isn't it?
Yeah.
I once watched I think this must have been a long time when I was growing up. The way I saw it is like the artists need. I'm not sure if this was for gaming or for cartoons, but like they had to draw different frames
Hmm.
of the animation.
Yeah.
to like be processed for the. So I don't know. Does that apply to gaming as well? Do they have to do so many sketches, or are things done on like obviously new tools that can sort of.
Yeah, there is this tool that we use, but I can't remember the name at the moment. But there is a tool that we use for that the front end uses for animation. I can't remember the name at the moment. But
Yeah,
yeah,
you can just tell me later. Then drop it somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
sorry. Yeah, just yeah,
You can just tell me later.
later.
Then
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So what's the challenge now with like back end work now with like in a gaming company? What's most of the
Um,
data that is saved? Like what's the major challenge with like gaming companies in terms of software?
um, Uptime, I would say, because you remember you have people that would always want to play the game at
Mm-hmm.
whatever point in time. So you need to first of all make sure that the game is always up at every single point in time. But there are some times that we always do some, I don't know, some work in the back where we actually have to pause the game for a bit, for a few seconds, for a few hours, I would say. Maybe we are doing some maintenance or something. Then we have to
Mm-hmm.
pause the game. And then we always notice that obviously everything drops, but the revenue, um, the amount of time people spend in the game because you can't actually play the game at that moment. So uptime, but that's basically when we are on maintenance mode. But then when the game is actually working fine and we're not on maintenance mode or anything, one thing that well, it's not necessarily a problem now, but could be if we're not very careful is speed of the game itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In a gaming company, obviously you need to make sure that once someone clicks
Performance.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, performance as well, performance speed um, of all the processes. So if someone, like for example, the Monopoly game, if someone, I don't know, like we have this feature called League Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if somebody is progressing within the league, then the user wants to see his progress, like obviously right away,
Yeah.
in a few milliseconds. But then
Yeah.
we have those are things that are being processed in the back end. So things that we need to think about is um, what are the types of data that we need to store in the database? What types of data we need to store in a cache so it's available at runtime, and we don't need to always go to the database to get data.
So it
So
runs
we have
faster.
data that
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly. So we have some data that is like config data that is actually needed by the game, probably even called like hundreds of times within 1 minute or so, or thousands of times. So do
Really?
we, yeah, yeah. So do we store that data in database or do we store it in a cache? So these are things that we need to uh, always think about as well. Like we have a rule in our team that okay, this we have a set of data that we actually store in the cache, set of data that actually store in the database, just to make sure that the performance of the game is not affected. So that's these
Mm-hmm.
are some of the things that we usually think about, which if yeah could always be problems, but then we have processes in place to separate where we store some certain types of data so that performance will not be a problem in the game.
Yeah, I guess. So and you just got into like the gaming industry as well, isn't it? So
Yeah.
before this you were back end front end in. I know when we worked together obviously it was financial products and such like B2B products.
Yeah.
So before you started gaming, like what was your last role like?
Before I started gaming, I used to work in a company called N Double, and it was basically a recruitment uh, company, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
because the app we're working on was for the recruiters in a company. So we had this application called ATS Central, and the problem that the company was trying to solve is you have different companies every company uses different ATSs, and an ATS is basically an application tracking system.
I was
An
about to
application,
ask.
yeah, yeah, just break it
Application
down a
tracking
bit.
system. Yeah,
An
yeah, go
application
on.
tracking system like Monster Board, um, which was Greenhouse, for example. You know those application tracking
Yeah,
systems that
yeah.
you see
I've come
whenever
across
you
Greenhouse.
yeah, exactly. So those are application tracking systems. So the problem is a company could decide to use multiple application tracking systems
Mm-hmm.
for their website. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
decide to use Greenhouse for roles that they have in the headquarters, for example, and they decide to use Monsterboard, for example, for other roles in Europe. So they can use multiple application tracking systems, but the problem is they have just one website, and they want to show all of that data, all of those job postings um, in that one website. But then, how do you get all
Wait, what do
those?
you mean? Do you mean the recruiters they want to
Yeah,
process all the applications on one platform?
not necessarily, because one reason they might want to process the applications or whatever the candidate applications on different ATSs.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, they're going to have one website, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay. That. Okay.
so
Well,
all those jobs that they have available, they want to post it on one website, and then on that website you can now say, I want to see jobs that are in Europe. I want to see jobs that are in whatever country it is, called jobs that are in headquarters, for example. But they usually have
mm,
just one website where they have all their jobs available within the company. So basically, we have we had a product. Well, should I say have? This probably should still have it
because
now.
you've left.
Yeah. So
So
Endovo
you,
has a
you can say
product.
they have a
Yeah,
product.
yeah, they have a product. They have
Yeah.
a product called ATS Central. So what that basically does is it aggregates all that data, basically in this case, the job postings that they have in whatever ATS the company, maybe for example, McDonald's, they use like five different ATSs. So we basically aggregate all those job postings that they have in the five different ATSs,
Mhm.
and then we process that and make it available in one API
But,
for their website. And
but
then
go on.
when the candidate applies to whatever job it is, then we process that candidate and then we send it to the respective ATS. So whatever ATS the job posting is for, we send that candidate to that ATS, basically.
I'm a bit lost if I'm gonna be honest, right? Because I'm trying to wonder why a company would use multiple ATSs. Is it only bigger companies that tend to use that, or would even
Yeah.
smaller companies? Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's also
Obviously, if it's a small company, there's really no reason why we use multiple ATSs.
yeah,
You
yeah.
save money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So bigger companies, they could have different subsidiaries. For example,
Aha.
The McDonald's in UK will not necessarily be the same as the McDonald's in Nigeria.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But still, they will have one website to show all the vacancies. Anyway.
Yeah, so like if you go, you filter by country,
Yeah.
then you're probably routed to one ATS at the back
Yeah.
end, right? For
Well,
the person.
not necessarily, because
Okay.
the job posting is from different ATSs, right?
Okay.
It could be from like two or three different ATSs for
Hmm.
one specific company.
Yeah.
But now that company has one website where it wants to show all the vacancies that they have. So we
Yeah.
basically, for that, on behalf of that company, we go to all the ATSs that they use, get
Hmm.
all the vacancies, and then make it available on their
One.
website, one
Yeah.
as
So
one.
you blend all the ATSs so they're available through one API call for the website.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Makes sense now. Makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously, like coming from that role into the gaming industry, were you nervous? What was that like?
I wouldn't say I was necessarily nervous because um, I was actually looking for a new challenge, something an industry I've never worked on before. I've worked
Mm-hmm.
on payments. I've worked in the transport industry. I worked in the recruitment industry. So I just wanted something different. I wouldn't mind uh, if it was a financial company as well. But my first choice was just something that I haven't worked on before.
Different.
And then yeah, something
Yeah.
very different.
Yeah.
And when I came across Azerion, I was like, yeah, it's gaming industry. I've never worked on this before. I mean, I don't really know how. Since I've never worked on it before, so I don't really know how the code base would be like.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say it necessarily made me nervous or anything. I was just
So what,
really curious to see how it actually works in the back end.
so when you say code base, what exactly are you referring to? Like in layman's terms, please.
I think code base is layman's terms actually.
Okay. Okay, explain. Expand a bit.
uh, what is a code base? A code base is just basically um, what makes an application to work, all that ones and zeros that makes an application to work. Well, it's not necessarily ones and zeros. That's pretty much like the computer itself.
Hmm,
But
hmm.
like there are different types of programming languages. So whatever programming language that you use, where you actually um, compile all that code that you write, is called a code base. Okay, let me
Yeah.
give you an example.
Okay.
Um, let's look at Facebook, for example. Everybody knows Facebook.
Hmm.
So think about let's look at a specific feature in Facebook. You have your timeline, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So in the timeline, you see what your friends post, right? You see what your friends post, either the pictures or the videos or whatever you see it in there. So you have the front end and then you have the back end. And as I
Hmm.
mentioned earlier, the front end is basically code, is basically what you can see, right?
Yeah.
So to basically show to users in a very nice way. I don't know what other word to use. In a very nice and beautiful way. The front end will write some code that would say, okay, um, I want the each of the posts that a user um, each of the posts of a user or a friend should be this size, for example, and then
Yeah.
the text should be this format, this font, this
This
size,
fun.
and then
Yeah.
the pictures should be in here somewhere. I don't know, like so. The front end
How
is
how
basically
how is actually rendered, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So how it is rendered to users is what the front end code base does, right?
UI stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So basically UI stuff, UI and UX stuff. So
Hmm.
how the application is rendered to the users is what the front end code base does. But now the hidden processes is what the back end code base does.
Hmm.
So an example is when you click on the add a friend,
Yeah.
right? So then a notification will be sent to that user that you're trying to add as a friend. The front end code base does not send that notification necessarily.
The back end.
Well, it depends really. That's don't quote me. That might be a very yeah,
The front
because
end
they're
guys will
different.
come for you.
Yeah, they're different technologies now. So the front end could still do some sort of notification right now. But
Okay.
in this scenario, we are designing a system where when you actually click on add a friend,
Yeah.
then the request goes to the back end saying, "Oh, I want to add. my name is Roland, for example. I want to add Obi as a friend. Ob as a friend. So
Mhm.
okay, then that request basically goes to the back end. So something happens in the back end in database. I don't really want to go too much into detail.
Profiles.
Then
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
once, yes. So I want to link this profile to this profile, and I want them to become friends. So then maybe the back end is the one that actually sends the notification, for example, to the user. So the back end would have some sort of code that basically sends a notification to this user's mobile phone, for example, saying, "Oh, this person wants to add you as a friend." So once you click on accept, then there's also a process in the back end that will now link both me, Roland, and you as a friend in the back end. So whenever you go to your timeline, not timeline, yeah, the timeline, and then you want to
Yeah.
see all the posts of your friends, then you will be included in my timeline now because the backend will say, "Oh, you are now
These
my friend,
guys know each
so
other. Yeah.
yeah, show this."
So it's just
So
like when you. Mhm, go on.
in layman's terms, what you can see is the front end, and what you can't see is the back end. The back end processes.
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. So that code base is defining what happens in the back end when something happens in the front end or how things are
Yes.
rendered, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more like
I
an
think.
asynchronous call.
Sorry.
So it's more like an asynchronous call. So if you press
Okay.
this, then it triggers some other things to happen and back end.
Oh, okay. 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 I think it's always intriguing to me to sort of understand, the technology behind the architecture behind the technology, how it actually works, how it actually comes together, right?
Hmm.
Even like even when it comes to artificial intelligence, and like I feel like I'm constantly learning every day,
Hmm.
right? And all of that, right? So anyway, so just speaking about your transition into gaming, do you feel like that industry is challenging? Is it different? Is it more challenging that where you're coming from, like the recruitment industry?
It's definitely more challenging because at the moment the game that we work on has about 1 million plus users that use it. So
More users to
that's definitely more traffic than what I've been used to for the past 2 years because I've worked in the other company for 2 years, and this is a product that people use every day, as
so
opposed
stakes are
to
higher. Yeah.
exactly as opposed to the recruitment company, which the time that we have a very high volume of users is Monday to Friday, because
Uh
on the weekends people obviously do their
switched
weekend
off.
thing, go to the beach or do whatever they want to do. The recruiters are not working on the weekends as well anyway, or at least
Hmm.
most of them
Hmm.
don't work on the weekends. So we don't get any problems on the weekend, you know? But as opposed to a gaming industry where everyone plays games every day and even on weekends as well, you know?
So you have to be
So,
on call.
well, definitely, because if the
Yeah.
game suddenly goes offline, then somebody needs to fix it, or we're going to just be losing money every second, you know?
It's that
So,
volatile.
yeah. So it's just like the financial industry as well. People
Okay.
send and receive money every day, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the
Okay.
same as well. In when we used to work in the other when we used to work together in Nigeria,
Yeah.
the financial industry, people can pay money or receive money at any time of the day, even on the
Especially.
weekends as well.
Yeah.
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 Remember those days we used to work on the weekends?
Yeah. Those days, the
Yeah.
good old days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think.
that's the major difference. That's the major difference between this and the previous company.
Yeah, I think that's. I think one thing that's definitely emerging in the industry is, you know, gamification, right? Um, and this is a topic I've sort of recently started getting into more as well to understand what it is. It's just basically and effectively what it is. I think is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is like when you have an application and or a product or a software, any sort of software offering, and you sort of instill, is it policies or um what's the word, you build it in such a way that people always want to be on it, right? Like, so the way they've done, like the way social media is today, everyone's so
Mhm.
like TikTok, right? TikTok,
Yeah.
the reason TikTok is blowing up, right? The reason TikTok is catching up to Instagram so fast
Yeah.
is because of gamification. But it's
Hmm.
not gamification the way you would expect it to be, like with actual games, right? But it's like it's the dancing, it's the singing, it's the interactive nature of it, right?
Yeah.
It's I think that's really exciting. That's really
Yeah.
exciting. And what people can do with gamification, applying it to every other thing. So it's like people talk about applying gamification to normal work as well. And if you notice, like everything is kind of being, is it dumbed down? I don't know if that's the appropriate way to say it, but it's like making things less serious.
Hmm.
So whatever process is more enjoyable, right? In
Yeah.
general. And I don't know if that's what's happening in the industry in terms of uh correct me, tell me what you think, right? So it's like before things like were a bit more rigid, like with
Yeah.
processes, like
Hmm.
everything was all waterfall. Now agile is different, right? And agile is difficult to define, right? The way I just do what works, what's most effective, and what
Yeah.
gets you from point A to point B fastest, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that brings chaos in a way because it's like it's hard to now define. I think even like certification bodies are finding it difficult to train agile because you can't train agile. It's almost like it's a mindset.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that kind of bring does agile make work more interesting from 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 our end, the people building the product. So I guess what I'm trying to say with your experience of waterfall and agile methodologies,
Yeah.
do you find using or applying agile frameworks more fulfilling in operation, like in the actual process of getting the work done?
I think yes. Well, not I think. I'm 100% sure yes. Based on my based on my but this is just based on my experience.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different opinion about it. But I believe the agile process is definitely something that helps because if you take for example, you want to this is just a random example. You already have a product, for example, maybe a I don't know application that actually helps users to I don't know get food in like 5 minutes, for example.
Like
And then you want
ordering food, you mean?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
maybe you don't want to order food, for example, and then your application basically helps people to order food and receive food in their houses in 5 to 10 minutes, like very
Hmm.
quickly.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you want to have a new feature, for example, and this new feature basically helps you to schedule food for the whole week, for example. Now, in an agile process, you want to build quickly and then deploy it to production quickly as well. So if you use a waterfall model and then you build this product or this feature that you're not even sure if people are actually going to use it or not.
Hmm.
But as opposed to having an agile setup within your company, then you can actually tell, okay, when you like do some parts of it, maybe like create like a little MVP, and then you release this feature as quick as possible, then you can actually tell if people actually use it or not. And
Hmm.
one thing that always happens very often is users might not even use your feature or products the way you would expect them to use it.
Yeah.
So that's usually a very funny realization
Yeah.
sometimes because
Right.
you create a feature or product for it to be used a specific way. But then when you actually release parts of it, people start using it in a different way. But
Yeah.
then having an agile process would actually help you to think about okay, people use this specific feature that we created or implemented in a different way. So what exactly can we do to change our roadmap, for example, or
Hmm.
change the feature to work the way the user would expect it to work,
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
example. So this can only be possible if you have an agile process.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's like you get that instant gratification, or not gratification, but that instant feedback, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like it sort of just makes it more of an enjoyable process, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you build something, you go show the user, like, what do you think? Or you get feedback from the user, depending on probably you're doing uh, you're using uh, software release cycle. Maybe you're just working with a small set of people, or probably you have some sort of feedback mechanism. That there are apps like that. I think there's segment, there's Pendo. There are some apps there that can give you like user feedback almost
Hmm.
like in real time.
Yeah.
It kind of what I think, right? And when it comes down to like product management, for example, or product ownership, when it comes down to like design thinking, I feel like that, and all these things can sort of be, they're all agile practices, right?
Hmm.
Isn't it? I feel like, when you have that feedback, it sort of makes your job more interesting. You don't just have to sit with the feature thinking of how is it going to go? What's it going to be like? How is everything going to come together? You just have to get it to a point where it's good enough and you get it out there as soon as you can.
Yeah.
Then you take it back and it's like you could get what you completely didn't expect.
Yeah.
Can be frustrating, but I feel like it's just a better way to work. It's a better
Yeah.
way to build something.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, when you look at it from in a long term, at the end of the day, you want to build something that people would actually want to use.
Yeah,
Something that
user
people
focused.
actually,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Something people actually want. And how do you know if people want your product if they don't use it? There is no way you're going
exactly.
to know that, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So once you put it out there, and then people say, "Oh, we don't like it," then you know that soon enough. As opposed
Back to
to
the drawing board. Yeah,
building this product for a whole 6 months, and then at the end of the day, people don't even want your product. You just wasted a whole 6 months of your whole life, to create.
that puts it in
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
To
because
create a product that,
you're stuck in your own head thinking like this is how people are going to use it. Oh, people are going to see what I see. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, people have different problems. People have different ways they will want to adapt your product, isn't it?
yeah.
I think.
So,
Go on.
because I remember like the first company, because I'm also an entrepreneur on the side. So the first company I actually built with my friend is a movie review slash TV show review company. So we do both movie and TV show reviews, and we also send like reminders whenever a new series that you bookmark on the website. Then we basically send you like a day before that this episode is coming out tomorrow, and this is where you can watch it for free and all that stuff.
Oh, dope.
Now, one of the problems that we actually had, well, looking back now
Mm-hmm,
in hindsight, was that we were just building what we want to use and not what was actually validated in the market. So we
Yeah,
spent like
validation. Mhm.
yeah, so we spent like a whole year building this product, and we just expected people to like it and to start using it.
Boom. Yeah.
So the first iteration was built in like 6 months. That one was not really good. It was very slow. It was very basic.
Hmm,
We
hmm,
didn't have any. We didn't have anyone that signed up. So then we built
hmm,
the other release. I think that was
hmm,
the beta version.
hmm.
And that was 6 months. So we basically used the whole year to build this product that no one actually used. We're trying to get investments. We're trying to get people to use it. But then in like a whole 6 months, we only had 100 new signups. And from these 100 new signups, how many people actually use it? Maybe like one review in a month or something like that. One person uses it in a whole month. So
Yeah.
the problem is we obviously did not use the agile method there. So we didn't use any method at all. But now looking back at it, it was more like a waterfall model. We just had this idea. We think people are going to like it. We think it's going to be the next Facebook. It's going to be the next Twitter or the next Instagram. And then we released the product, and it was nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now the point is, when you actually have validated your idea quick enough, then you would know if you're actually building a product that people want to use or not. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, you save money and time.
yeah, from a
The
software developer's perspective, I would say you'd save time because as a software developer, you can build anything, right? You
Mhm.
can build Facebook, but why would you want to build Facebook? There's already Facebook, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
so it's quite interesting. You've mentioned the from a software developer's point of view, something that might be a bit frustrating about. I'm not sure, right? So correct me if I'm wrong. Is there less or more rework in Agile for from your point of view? Because I think under like a waterfall methodology, right? Or
yeah,
everything is decided. There's less rework, except it's a thing of performance or those sort of higher level technical requirements, right? Right. Um, so, but in agile, like you might have to do a couple of you might have to do it a couple of times around.
Yeah.
Is that frustrating to you as a developer or as an engineer having to do that?
Um, I would say
Hmm.
the answer to that question is more of a perspective thing
Hmm. Hmm.
because as if you're thinking in terms of a software engineer solving a problem, it will be frustrating to you because your product owner will tell you, "Oh, we need to make A plus B equal to C." And then when the user actually use it, they are saying A plus B should not be C, though it should be D. Then product owner comes back and tell you, "Oh, you need to change it. A plus B is D. That's what the users want. So
So
change it."
you're putting it on the product owners now.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying the product owner is doing anything wrong in this case. I'm just saying what I'm
Yeah.
actually looking at this from the software engineer's point of view. So if the software
Okay.
engineer is looking at it from a software engineer's point of view, I mean, to be very honest, it's very frustrating when you have to change one specific thing like 100 times. I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
we're all humans, right?
Yeah.
Doing something all over again is very frustrating.
Hmm.
But the reason why I said is more of a perspective uh, uh, thing is because if, as I said, software engineer looking at a software engineer's point of view, it will be very frustrating. But then when you look at things from the user's point of view, I would say I would not say it will be less frustrating. I would just say it might be less frustrating to you because you remember you're building a software that should be usable by the masses or your
Yeah.
target market, for example. So
Yeah.
if you look at it from that perspective, then it will be less frustrating to you as a software engineer. So I like to think about it from the user's point of view because
Okay.
aside from my 9 to 5 job, I also do like my own personal consulting on the side.
Yeah.
And then I get to actually meet users themselves. And when I actually do meet users, I get to feel what the users feel. You know, they have a vision. They have a
Yeah.
vision of this wonderful idea that's going to be the next TikTok, and they're very
Yeah.
passionate. They're very passionate about it. So they try as much as possible to dispense this idea to you. You know, and then once you have this one-on-one with that person, you get to feel the emotion. You get to feel, everything. You get to see the vision more clearly. But then, as a software engineer, you're not actually meeting up with the users. You know,
Hmm.
there's this hierarchy within the process.
Roadblocks.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you have the product owner that actually probably speaks to the project manager. I don't know. It depends on the way the company is set up. You have
Organize.
the
Yeah.
product. You have the product owner. You have the product manager or product manager, and then you have people that that they actually speak to the users, and then they basically um, get information from the users and then tell that to you. So you might not really feel what the users feel, the
Hmm.
frustration the users feel when they actually use your product when you don't speak to them. So that's the reason why a software engineer will feel very frustrated when he has to change something. But then
Okay.
when you actually look at it from the user's point of view, then you can get to think like a user. Oh, I'm actually the user actually using this product. But then, to be honest, looking at it from his point of view, yeah, it's very frustrating when you have to click 5 buttons before you can actually send a message. Yeah, it is very frustrating.
So effectively, what you're saying that as a software engineer, in situations where you have to probably do rework, if you have the opportunity, when you have the opportunity to sort of empathize with your end users, it's less of a task and more of like problem solving, which sort of makes it more fulfilling. It makes it more of a fulfilling task because you feel like you're trying to solve a problem
Yeah,
rather than just doing rework.
yeah,
And that's sort of the benefit you see of, because we're always going to get to this. We've spoken about this a couple
yeah,
of times, right? Isn't it?
yeah,
The need for sort of the whole team to sort of empathize with the user. So I think the question there is, should I think product owners and product managers, whatever the case may be, that interface, that whoever is bridging the gap between the technical team and the users there, should they do more of a job, or more should they put more of a conscious effort towards helping you guys, at the back end or the front, the developers or the engineers, to empathize with users?
Um, I would say every company is very different.
Yeah.
So, like for example, in my company, we get to see or we get to speak directly because we have a QA, right? So the QA actually tests it. So in our case, they are our end users, right? Well, at least the first set of end users, the QA team, and then
And
it
I'm
gets
guessing sorry, just in your gaming company, just there's a lot more testing
yeah,
done because of performance.
yeah,
Performance is yeah. Okay, go on.
yeah. So then they speak to us as a user using the game, and they also express their frustration to us directly as developers because we always have a meeting, you know. So I would say that because we always have a meet, like I think tomorrow we're also having a meeting like that as well,
Mm-hmm.
where they actually express, we have a demo, and yeah, they actually tell us this is supposed to be changed or whatever, stuff like that. So I think the whole point of what I'm trying to say is it will be very helpful if, well, in my opinion, and then from my experience, it will be very helpful if every team finds a way to get the developers, it's the software developer, to see things from the end user's perspective, because that would help you to show more empathy to the users. I can give you an example.
Go
Let's
on.
assume you work in a company and you always finish at 5 o'clock, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and then before you go, you have a new task saying, "Oh, um, I don't know, you need to change the color of this particular page. The background color affects the actual text itself. Maybe the background color is white, and then the text is like ash or something, and that actually it affects the user's the user experience because the colors are quite similar. The text is quite similar to the background, and then you see how you have this task that's coming to you at 4:50, and then you have 10 minutes to leave the office, and then you just look at it as, oh, I can do this on Monday,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And why would you say I can do this on Monday? Because this just seems like one of those other tasks that has been assigned to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not You're not seeing it as you trying to help the users to
You
use
don't
your
see the bigger
product,
picture. Yeah.
to make your product more usable. You just look at it as another task that is being assigned to you. But then when you are able to see things from the user's perspective, every task that comes to you is more like an opportunity to solve a problem for the user,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just another task, another work task that has been assigned to you.
So if your
If you
if
get
your
what I mean?
product owner added a narrative on that issue, that ticket, for example, to say, this is the problem, this is why we should do it like this, would that make, and you had a read through of that, would that make it more, would that, you know, meet that gap you were just speaking about?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because when the actual person facing a problem expresses it, that expresses that problem to you, it's different from someone else explaining what the problem of another person is. If you get what I mean?
You don't buy it.
Yeah, it's like you're probably just exaggerating anyway. I know I know this is just a little problem. You're just exaggerating so I can do it quicker. You know?
The reason I ask this is because I'm sort of, so I'm on the other side, and there's always a tension between sort of the product owner and the, you guys, the software engineers, because you feel
Mhm.
like we're just giving you work to do, isn't it? Like you
Very
said, like
much.
we're just exaggerating, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to understand, you know what can what can we sort of do to put the task in a more to present the task in a more fulfilling way, right? So they can be done, because it's also going to affect how you go about doing it, because you might even put some thought into it and realize, okay, this was a miscalculation, probably like this, and there's that dialogue and there's that collaboration, right? So, so normal agile frameworks, for example, right? Let's talk about Scrum, for example.
Mhm.
um there are certain thing, and different companies, they have their own customizations, that different activities that they put in there, sort of to make it more collaborative. But let's talk about Scrum, right? Before it goes live, right, after the sprint, there's usually some sort of demo activity, right, where you can bring users to. It doesn't happen in all companies, but ideally that's how it should how it should happen, right? So that, in that sort of environment where you demo the product, right, is that a good way to get feedback? Is that enough? What is enough from your end to sort of get enough empathy from the user? Because like you said, the QAs are there sometimes you get some end users, some actual end users, to
Yeah.
be part of that process. What more do you feel needs to sort of be done?
Well, what I could say is the more, the better. But the thing is, if you as a software engineer uh, get to meet the users too often, then that would actually affect your work, you know,
Yeah.
because then you would not
Hmm.
really have that much time to
To
work
zone
on
in.
to solve the
Yeah.
problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
because as you mentioned, you need to zone in and then solve the
Yeah.
problem.
That's why,
I think
they have sprints. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think the whole idea is just it also probably depends on the team as well, the
Hmm.
developers in the team. How many times do you need to meet the user before you understand what the user feels? You know, so I would think that is more like a team related question. But the
So
point
it.
is for you to be able to see things from the user's point of view. If it only takes you just um, one I don't know, one session with the end users, then maybe that's enough for that team.
Is it fair to say that if, as a software developer or engineer, right, if you are not sort of seeing the bigger picture, then your product owner is not doing a good enough job of translating that?
I would say yes,
Hmm.
ish, because remember the product owner or slash product manager, depending on the
Hmm.
composition of the team in the company.
Let's just use product owner for today, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
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 So let's just okay. So the product owner decides what the roadmap should be, right?
Hmm.
So he or she should be able to show you what the bigger picture is. You know, it should be able to come up with ideas. Also, developers and engineers are not should also come up with ideas as well because
Ideas.
you're also using the product. But then the product owner should be able to come up with like a proper roadmap, saying, "Oh, this is what we're going to do for the next 2 weeks. For the first quarter, second quarter, this is what we need to achieve. Maybe we need to have this feature." Like the product owner in my company in my team does a really good job. I think he even has his kids playing the game as well, and they come up
Nice
with ideas. They
feedback.
come, yeah, exactly. He gets like
Smart work.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. He gets first hand feedback from them, and
Yeah.
then they tell him that, oh, why don't you do this in the game? Why don't you do that in the game? And then with that, he is able to come up with ideas that we can also add to the game. And then
That guy
every other
is
month,
making his kids work for him.
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
every other month we have this new idea or this new feature that we need to add to the product.
Because I think for me personally, like, the more you look into it, right, product ownership it goes beyond just breaking down tasks and putting it in Jira. It
Mhm.
goes into what you're saying, right?
Yeah,
Helping everyone sort of get on board and know the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
everyone sort of is more invested in the idea. There's more motivation, there's more fulfillment, either with the users also using the product as such. So there's fulfillment there, there's value there,
Yeah.
and as well as the software team as well, the technical team. There should be fulfillment in actually doing the work. So I think yeah, the first time we had these conversations, I thought you wanted to cancel us product owners first, but I
No,
think I
no,
definitely agree with what you're saying. It speaks about your product owner, your product specialist, right?
no. Mhm.
If everyone sort of feels on board, and it's like getting ideas from everywhere and blending it together. Really, that's what it's about. It's not about being the brainy or coming up with the ideas themselves, but drawing the ideas from the right places
Yeah.
and putting it together. So there's actually a reality, and this, right? Some developers actually don't like interfacing with users.
Yeah.
Some
True. True.
developers, they just want, what do you want me to build?
Yeah,
Get
and
me
I'll do it.
my specifications and I'll get to it, right?
Yeah.
So what do you say to those developers as a developer?
The thing is, you can't really teach people behavior, or you
Yeah.
can't teach or change people's behavior. You can only
Mhm.
suggest to them that, okay, I think you're a bit too stiff. Okay, you need to loosen up.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, what more can you do? You can't really change people's
Yeah.
behavior. They're tutor or something. They're not working for you to teach them
Mhm.
how to behave. You already know how they'll behave when you're interviewing
Mhm.
them anyway. So the
Mhm.
question
Mhm.
is, does this person that is very stiff fit into your company's culture? I mean,
Yeah.
that should be where the problem actually starts from. Do you
I
want
think
someone like,
yeah, go on.
in my company, we don't have any, in my team, we don't have any developer like that. We are all very open and we speak. No one is stiff. No one just keeps to
Yeah.
himself and not suggest anything, just wants to work. So it would start with the company's culture, I would say.
Mhm.
What kind of
Mhm.
developers do you hire in your team? Well, in the case where you actually have a developer that is stiff, I mean, what can you really do? You can't train him to not be stiff. That's just the way it is, really. It
Yeah.
is a disadvantage to your team because he might not really suggest anything to you. He might just want to always come to the
Yeah.
office and just do the task and then leave. But
I
then,
think one I
yeah,
think one thing I've definitely found with like the more effective developers I worked with in like my life, and like as developers mature as well, right? The higher level developers, they are able to empathize with
mhm,
users. And I
yeah,
think in a lot of cases, that's where you see the developer, a developer, moving up and being a product owner, being a product
yeah,
manager, because it's like a progression in the career, isn't it? And I
yeah,
think what we're just talking about, like when it comes to sort of mentoring, something that could be useful is sort of trying to help the developer see how the work could be more fulfilling if they're able to empathize with the user, and that makes it more of like a problem solving activity rather than. Do you think that's relevant? Do you think that would help?
I mean, yes, it would help, but then it also depends on the developer himself or herself, if it's a female.
Yeah.
Will the person actually want to change? There are some developers that do not want to be managers. They just want to be developers. So they do not care about uh, speaking to other people. They're
Hmm.
very shy. They're very reserved. I've worked with developers like that. That if you ask them, do you actually want to? Okay, I'm working on a talk. I want to speak to you about it, and they're like, nah.
Not my
Or do
forte.
you do you yeah do you actually want to there is this new person coming in. Do you want to
Hmm.
mentor him or her? And they're like, no, I don't really want to do that. I just want to work. I
Hmm.
mean, so there are developers like that. And the first step is for the developer to realize that he or she needs to change. If the
Mm.
developer doesn't realize that fact or doesn't want to change, then there is only so much you could do, you know?
Yeah, I think the big question is how what point or what makes them realize that they should change? What
I
is
think
their why? What's their
I think
resolve for changing?
I think from what you said, I also share that opinion as well. You just need to show them what the benefits are of being someone totally different from who they are now, which
More
is showing
fulfilled work. Yeah.
exactly showing them how it's more fulfilling to actually speak to people.
Hmm.
Speak to maybe the end users, for example. Speaking to the end users would help you to empathize, as you mentioned, with them, and that would help you to see things from their perspective. But then if you just by yourself doing things in the silo, then I mean you're just making a product that only you would like to use, or even you wouldn't even use it because there are
Yeah.
many times developers will say, "Oh, what kind of app is this? This is rubbish." But then, but then, why is it rubbish? Because the developer that actually made it doesn't care about you as a user.
Hmm.
He just sits down like you and writes the code and goes back home. He doesn't care about
Hmm.
the users.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
that could be a stepping stone. Maybe you find a developer that always sits in, always that is always stiff, and then complains about other people's code or
Work.
other
Yeah.
people's work. Then you can even use that as a starting point and saying, you know why that app is not usable. You don't like it.
I think one thing that would definitely be beneficial is, at the education level, right? At the point of getting degrees, or if it's qualification, there needs to be like a conscious effort to encourage, so in companies as well, to encourage developers to build on their interpersonal skills, right? Their communication skills. Those, so there should be those sort of milestones, or those kind of personal development goals
Mhm.
within companies at the education level, and all of that, to sort of foster that. Because I think, especially when you're working in a collaborative team, when you have people who are less likely to sort of give their opinion on certain things, it's not as productive as it can be, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyways, but I think just talking about that, something that I really want to talk about is, so as a developer, like yourself,
Yeah.
as far as you've come in your career, you didn't go through the normal channel, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't get your first degree normal the way the conventional way in the industry, basically. What was that like? Isn't it? Because I think when we met, yeah, and you told me, and obviously we're working together, you were like a senior developer in the company, and you're basically like, doing really well. And we spoke about that. It's and I think what you find in the industry is it's actually more common, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is that the case actually? Because I think there are a lot of cases, even more now, where it's proving that to be proficient, especially like as a developer, right? You don't need to go through the normal conventional channels, education channels that they are.
Well, to be a software developer, you don't need a degree. I'll start with that.
Yeah.
There are some companies that require you to have a degree, but you don't necessarily need it in
Hmm.
this software development field. Like I personally do not have a degree. I only have a HND, and it is becoming more common now for people not to go to university anymore to become software
Yep.
developers.
Yep.
And in many cases, you have software developers that didn't learn anything about computer science in the university. Maybe they were doctors, for example, and then decided to switch. So they just probably went for like a boot camp or something,
Yeah.
or did like a course online, and then they just all of a sudden after the 3 months or to 6 months, they are now junior software developers.
Yeah.
So usually what we look for is just the skill, you know? Do you actually have the skill to build things? You know? That's pretty much it, really.
How would you
Yes.
describe the skill? Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
So as a software developer, you should be a very good problem solver. So during
Okay.
the interview process, that's one of the main skill that we will be that they'll be testing for any company that you want to work with. Aside from the fact that you should be able to actually write code, obviously, that's how we know if you're a junior, senior, or medium developer, or you can't even code at all. Now, aside from that, we need to we, your problem solving skills need to be shown as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they're going to ask you questions that would basically show that then you have to answer to show that you can actually solve problems.
Let's pause. I actually have a question that's been skipping my mind, and I should have
Yeah.
asked you from the beginning of this conversation. What is the difference between a software developer, a software engineer?
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
please.
yeah, a software developer is someone that could write code, right? A software
That can use
engineer,
the language. Yeah, okay.
yes, whatever language, have Python, Java, whatever code it is, you can write it. A
hmm
software engineer can also write code as well, but the major difference is a software engineer looks at things in a larger scale, from a long-term perspective, basically. A software engineer,
Holistically, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a software engineer uses engineering skills to solve problems. So its architectural skills, its design skills are put into place in this case. So a software developer is someone you could tell, oh, um, I want you to build this feature this particular way. A software developer can do it. But then if you ask a software developer, okay, I want to build a messaging microservice, for example. I want a microservice that could actually just basically sends emails. A software developer would not know how to architect this microservice.
Hmm.
It
So
might not, it might not build it in a way that is future proof. You know, maybe for example, today you might just have 1,000 users, so the application might work fine. But then what happens when all of a sudden you start to have 200,000 users every week? So from the start, a software engineer would already know how to make sure that your product is horizontally scalable. If all of a sudden you have millions of users, it actually still works and nothing breaks. So the software engineer basically knows how to architect a product and sees things from a very large, uh, from a wider perspective.
so
So that's the major difference.
when you give a problem to a software engineer, they don't just jump into the code. Like they look at dependencies, they look at future proof, blah blah blah. So a question I have there: if you have a Scrum team
Yeah.
and you have software engineers, like not just on paper, but based on what we said, they're software engineers. Do you need an engineering manager?
Um, that also depends on the company. There
Let,
are some.
let, let,
There,
let- could you break down what an engineering manager does first, like in a conventional Scrum team, right?
well, an engineering manager basically just is someone that you. Well, it also depends on the company because
It always
you might.
depends on
Yeah.
the companies. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. At
Yes.
the end
Yeah.
of the day.
But ideally, an engineering manager probably still writes some code as well,
hmm
but he first of all makes sure that you, as a developer in his team, has everything that you need to actually write code without any problems. So any external dependencies that you need, it makes sure that
Tools.
yeah, all those
Yeah.
tools, it makes sure that you have all those things basically, and sometimes he writes code as well. So yeah, that's basically what an engineering manager does, to be honest.
So if you have mature software engineers, do they necessarily need an engineering manager? Like realistically?
Um,
Or for example, I know in some companies they don't talk about managers, they talk about solution architects. Do you need that person? Or
well, in some
or
well, as also an engineering manager also does some architecture as well for
hmm
for the code base. So it's someone that you speak to whenever you have, I don't know, maybe you have a new product that you want to build or a new feature. So the
hmm
engineering manager actually directs the whole architecture and all that stuff. So do you necessarily need an engineering manager? I would also say that
depends.
depends on the
Yeah,
team.
yeah,
As it would be nice if you have an engineering manager that actually obviously knows the more, architecture very very deeply. That will obviously help you to direct. That obviously helps the engineering team to head in the right direction. That would definitely help. But then, if it's a very small company, they might not necessarily need an engineering manager. If they want to solve any problem or architect any new solution, then they come together as a team. So the senior developers will be the ones that would act as the engineering manager because they have more knowledge. So they're the ones that will act as that engineering manager in that case. But in bigger companies like Uber and the rest of them, they do have engineering managers that actually lead this architectural decisions and leads and coordinates these architectural decisions. So it's always nice to have an engineering manager, but then in in most cases for smaller companies, the senior developers will act as will take the lead in architectural decisions, basically.
I think at the end of the day, like one common theme in what we're saying, it depends. It depends on the company, it depends on the requirements of the team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because in some cases, some of all this future proofing is, these are questions that your product owner should be asking as well in some cases.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess, I
And also
guess
and
at
also
the
to mention an engineering manager is just basically splitting the responsibilities. Well, in a case where you have an engineering manager, then the engineering team would not need to worry about coming up with architectural decisions, like
yeah.
taking the lead in this architectural decisions. The engineering manager already will probably have a plan.
Hmm.
We'll have different diagrams and the rest of them, and you just share it with the engineering team and say, okay, this is the direction I think I want us to go. Do you have any suggestions and the rest of them? But then in the case where you do not have an engineering manager, then the engineering team will have to sit together. Maybe in the team they decide, okay, this person takes the lead, or maybe they all do it together, or something like that. So that will be the benefit of having an engineering manager because he or she would take that architectural decision uh, by himself and then share
Yeah.
it with the team.
I think what's happening in the industry now is like I think the term engineering software engineer is cool. It's almost cooler than software developer now. So I think most companies are adopting, the software engineer tag. But I mean, just for the benefit of anyone listening to this who is younger in the industry, I might feel, you know, a bit, feel like software engineering is more like daunting, isn't it? It's not the case, isn't it?
Now it's just seeing things from a
It's
different perspective. So it's not just about writing code. Every developer can write code, but you want to write code in a very efficient way. You know.
so it's challenging. I guess that tag is challenging you to think more about your code, to empathize more, to look at the bigger picture
Yeah.
better,
So
like
yeah. So
be
basically,
more practical about that. Yeah.
creating code that is very scalable. Something that can easily scale. That's those are the benefits of being a software engineer, basically.
Do you think software developers like that name tag, right? Or that job role, just that name really, right? Software developers. Do you think it's going to phase out eventually? And people will just start using software engineers. I'm a software engineer, I'm a junior software engineer, and such and such.
I don't necessarily think it's going to phase out. People use the name interchangeably anyway, not necessarily
Mm,
knowing the meaning, the
yeah.
main difference between the two names. Even I also used to call myself a software developer until I
Hmm.
knew what the difference between the two names are. Then My LinkedIn profile, changed everything. It has to be software engineer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess once people get to know the major difference, some people might still be software developers at heart, but then call themselves software engineers. Um, so I don't really think it will phase out. It will still be there. But I guess as time goes on, people will get to know the difference between being just a software developer and the difference between a software developer and a software engineer.
I think within the IT industry now, with the way things are becoming more agile, especially, they are less the requirements for jobs in general is being broken down to those core, those core skills, more of like problem solving, and is less around you having a degree, right? And I'd say the same, just the same way you've explained for software engineers as well. So, for example, product ownership, you can't find a degree at university you go study and to be a product owner as well. Eh,
Hmm.
Certification bodies are catching up in putting out the certificate, the qualifications for product ownership and
Yeah,
scrum masters and all of that. And I think that's a unique opportunity for people to identify the core requirements of the role and use it as an entry point into the industry, isn't it?
yeah,
I just feel like it's a good time, and I think it's a good industry where people can just identify, okay, these are the core requirements of this role, get themselves sort of up to date with the domain knowledge and all of that, and apply themselves and use that as an easier entry point to the industry. My question is this, or so what I'm trying to say is this a better time to get into the industry? Is it harder getting into the industry now, or is it more difficult?
now it's very easy because you can do it for free now. I didn't have to pay. Well, I did study computing and system development in college, but I wouldn't really give them credit for the knowledge I knew at that point because I did my own little research back then when I was in school, and I did everything for free. Obviously, I had to pay for college, but then what I actually used to get to the start of my career, the uh, experience I got, it was all for free. All the knowledge I got was for free. So you can literally just go on the internet and type, how do you create a login page in Python? That information is there. There's millions of YouTube videos that you can watch. So now is the best time because, I mean, yes, you can get loads of things for free, for one. You can also get loads of things, loads of tutorials that you could use that could actually help you for very cheap at the moment as well. There are loads of tutorials, loads of people that actually have this on YouTube or Code Academy, all these websites, Udemy. They have all
Yeah.
these things that you could watch online. These tutorials you could watch online that can actually help you to code. So now is the best time, definitely.
To get into the industry, isn't it?
Now is the best
I
time. It's
think
more
so as
accessible at the
well.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I think the IT industry is kind of ahead of the curve in this. Not, and I think, and I'm hoping it's going to follow suit in other industries. Not all industries per se, but it's just sort of breaking down those the conventional, the rigid requirements of getting into a job and breaking it down to, okay, what skills do you need for this? That it's not necessarily, because if you think about it, right, at university or at any educational institution, what they really do is they create a syllabus, and what that is like, they structure the information you need to learn. So one challenge for someone who's trying to self-learn or learn independently might be, what do I learn first? Right? There's loads of information there to learn. But when you're in an institution, they sort of break that down. Okay, do this assignment, learn this first, learn this, learn this, learn this, learn this, learn this. So I think like you said, just in general, like it's a good time to get into IT, and I'm hoping other industries follow suit and break their entry requirements down for people to sort of get in.
But now that we've been talking about that, I'm even thinking about something now.
Go
In
on.
my case specifically, when I was
Mm-hmm.
studying computing and systems development, I wasn't just for programming. We had different uh, subjects: programming, networking, um, hardware stuff, and loads of them. I think about 12 of them, different courses. Programming was like 2 units. But then we had like 10 other ones, like networking and the rest of them. I would say one benefit of actually going to these educational institutions or universities is that you get exposed to different um, aspects of the industry you're actually going into. Like for example, the IT industry, you can't. There are different types of jobs. You could be DevOps, you could be a software developer or software engineer. Sorry, um, you could be a networking expert. You could be a hardware expert, wherever it is. So when you go to college, you get exposed to all this. And usually for those that are very young, you might not know exactly what you would like in the future. So it would be nice for you to experience different sectors within the industry, within whatever. Like for example, this is the IT industry. So different sectors within this IT industry, and then you then be able to know exactly which one you would like.
You fit
That is
into.
benefit of one of the benefits. Yeah, one of the benefits. Not even necessarily fit into. You might. It's more about the passion, right? What you're more passionate about. At the end of the day, and you might not really know what you're passionate about until you actually test the
Until
waters,
you
right?
try it.
You
Yeah.
try it yourself. So that's one of the benefits. But for those that are already older and want to get into the IT industry, then they probably at that time are more. At that time they already know. Okay, as a person, I'm 28 or 30 or whatever it is. I already know what I like. So then they should also be like very specific. They should also be like uh yeah. In that case, then you going to college might not really be the best option. You just have, for example, you already know I want to be a software engineer, so you just go straight into a software engineering course. In that
Boot
case,
camps.
yeah, or bootcamp, or you just watch tutorials online on Udemy or Code Academy and the rest of them.
I think the struggle there is building a portfolio for yourself, right? Isn't it? Building, trying to build something relevant. I think one thing you always mentioned to me, when I was interested in going down the data scientist route,
Yeah,
remember that what you just kept on saying to me is get a project, right?
yeah,
Build your portfolio. And I think that's key, because what's sort of coming up in my mind from what we're just discussing here is, at the end of the day, there's experience versus qualify. It's not even really versus, but there's experience, qualification, and there's a degree.
yeah.
Those are the three main sort of routes that you can sort of use to build yourself, right?
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I think it's about balancing them, and at whatever point you are in your life, what sort of resources you have open to you, right? Because I can imagine your kid, for example, when you do have a kid,
Yeah,
if they wanted to do software engineering, right? Would they need to go to a university to? They probably would, but you can sort of push them in the right direction to saying, okay, do this project, yeah,
yeah,
or probably in your own company, or with your consulting or something like that, get them going. It just, people ask all the time, like even with mentoring, right? Some people ask, should I do qualifications? Should I get experience? Should I go back to school? What is the actual way to go? And I think that question is very difficult, right? You just do what you can, right? and build yourself whatever resources you have around you. Take advantage of. If you know someone, if you have the opportunity to sort of do an internship in a startup company or in someone's company, get your experience up, right? You can bolster that with qualifications, because education right now is very expensive, and that's just the reality, right?
Yeah.
So it's a question, but I think every situation is different.
Yeah. I always
Hmm.
say for someone that wants to start, that wants to become a software developer,
Hmm.
well, I wouldn't advise you to go to, well, you could do whatever you want. Say that, put that out there first. But
Disclaimer.
yeah, disclaimer. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't go to university to study computer science or software development. Um, you could go to college, or you could choose not to. If you, yeah, but at least at least you have a college degree at least. So maybe you should go to college. But at the end of the
Okay.
day, where you actually what is actually needed is not your college degree, is your skill and experience. So what I always advise people is, whilst you're still in college or in the university, if you want to become a software developer, you should already start um, using those skills that you're learning in university or in college. You should already start building something. I could give you my own example. Whilst I was in college, I was already building websites for my cousins, my aunties, my uncles. I was already
For
building
free.
AP for free. Yes, yes, for free. They didn't
Yeah,
pay me. They didn't pay me nothing. Maybe I got like £200 for something, for one
yeah,
website like that. Yeah, for one of my uncles, I think he paid me like £200. But aside from that, everything was free. At this point,
yeah,
I mean, you're trying to gain experience. You're trying to have a portfolio, so you shouldn't really care about money at this point, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
I did that. But then what actually helped me a great bunch was coming up with a project for myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this was what I talked about earlier in the podcast. I had a company with my friend, which basically we do movie and TV show reviews. So this product that we actually came up with was what actually helped me to have expert, like really, really, really like major experience at that point in time when it comes to software development. So then I was able to learn how to use frameworks. I was able to learn how to use notifications, queues. I was able to learn about architecture. I was able to learn how to be a DevOps myself, because the product we did, obviously we required a server, right? We didn't use a shared server. We had a dedicated server. So yeah, we had to set up everything ourselves. I had to set up everything else myself. So then I learned how to configure things on the server. I basically learned different aspects of software engineering from just that one project. So what I always advise people to do is, when you're just starting out, come up with a project that you know you cannot build at that particular point in time.
Challenge yourself.
Yeah, basically challenge yourself. So come up with a project.
Yeah,
Say it doesn't have to be something that solves a problem. The main idea here is for you to actually have some skill, right? Experience.
yeah.
So you could say, I want to build the next Facebook, for example. And then today, you can then come up with a plan and say, okay, this month, I want to be able to build a login page and also the timeline. You could literally go online and say, how do you build a Facebook clone? And you would see some code online or whatever it is. You would see something at
Yeah,
least that you can actually use. So maybe you want to learn Python, for example, or you're learning
yeah,
Python. You can say, how do I build a login page in Python? You'll
yeah.
see loads of videos on YouTube, and then you just implement that on your local project. The next thing you want to do is, okay, I've built a login page. Okay, now that I'm logged in, how do I build a timeline, a Facebook like timeline? You would see some code online as well, or some
Hmm.
videos as well. Just implement that in your code. So little by little, it will take you a very long time, as opposed to when you have 5 years of experience. Like the first time I built like the app I told you about, it took like 6 months or
How
seven
long would that
months,
take you now?
probably like 2 weeks. But or even one week if I
Wow.
spend like 24 hours on it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but you don't really need to worry about all of that. As you have more, as you get more experience,
Process.
things get things get easier for you. But then when you're starting out, just come up with a product that you can't build at that moment, and then just build it gradually. And then
Yeah.
as you building it gradually, you're learning a whole lot, basically, a whole
Yeah.
lot. That would help you a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely the way to go. I think we've spoken about a lot of quite a few roles, not all of them, right?
Yeah,
Within sort of a software development environment. Something we haven't spoken about specific, some like a role we haven't spoken about is the Scrum Master role.
yeah.
And so, how would you describe a Scrum Master role? And I'm going somewhere with this, but yeah,
Okay.
go on.
Well, my famous phrase, it depends.
Okay, your ideal Scrum Master, but go on.
Okay. Yeah. In every company, they have, but usually a Scrum Master, first of all, is an admin for the board. So your Scrum board is an
Yeah,
admin for it. Um, it basically makes sure that all the Scrum processes are being followed. So you make sure that you have your daily stand up, your retrospective, your sprint review, your planning, and just make sure he or she just makes sure that um, anything that affects the team
hmm,
negatively is basically taken out. You know, nothing, anything that he or she knows that's going to affect the team in a negative way, he or she makes sure that this problem is solved, basically.
like the product owner trying to, uh, put too many tasks or too many stories in the sprint to
Oh,
increase.
that could be a problem. So yeah, the Scrum Master will solve
Yeah.
that one.
So I think one thing I'm particular about, right, is have you ever had an experience of a Scrum Master sort of because when it's sprint time, the Scrum Master pushes us product owners away, right? Isn't it? Don't disturb us, except maybe for backlog refinement, and obviously there's a there's a conscious attempt and there's a conscious approach to make sure that too much time is not spent on backlog refinement. But is there ever a situation where you found your Scrum Master micromanaging the development team?
Well, to be honest, I've not actually had a Scrum Master like that, but I would think that would definitely be possible. The Scrum
Yeah,
Master micromanaging the development team. Yeah, for sure. Checking up very regularly. Uh, yeah, yeah. But I've not really experienced that, so to
that
speak.
yeah.
So I
I
guess I've
think
had good Scrum Masters then.
yeah, you have because as you would imagine, coming from the older way of working to the new way of working is
Yeah,
mostly project managers who come along to be scrum masters, and the project manager is the one asking, where are my deliverables, where are my
yeah,
tasks,
yeah,
always checking in on that. And it's just, I was just curious to check on that, if that's like a pitfall you've experienced of a scrum master sort of micromanaging the team and saying, um, you know, what are you doing now? Why, why is the, why aren't you done with such and such tasks? And they are not meant to do that during a sprint, are they? Isn't it?
no.
They're meant to do that after, when they're looking at the burn down chart,
Or during the review.
during the review. Yeah,
Yeah,
the sprint review. So yeah, okay, that's good. You've had
I've had
good,
really good. Yeah,
yeah, you've had good product owners, yeah, as well. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very
yeah,
honest, yeah. Yeah, sometimes it could be a bit what, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay, I think just breaking everything down, right? You've come into this role where you've had to, your new role. It's a new industry. The learning never stops, does it?
Nope. When you stop learning, that's when you stop becoming a software engineer.
Yeah. So like how often do you have to learn? Like so how long have you been working in your new role?
Since January, so that's about 4 months.
What are the new things you've had to learn?
Well, first of all, Java,
Like on
because
okay.
I'm not a I wasn't a Java developer prior
Mm-hmm.
to working at this company, but now I'm learning Java at the moment, and so I'm basically taking my own advice. I have a project I'm working on with my brother in Java. It's
Mm-hmm.
a it's an idea for property development. For a property management platform. So we're
Yeah.
actually building it in Java. And so basically on the side, that's how I'm learning Java on my own personally. And also in the real world, I'm actually fixing bugs in our application that's built in Java as well. So both ways in the real world, solving real problems and also having my own little personal project is how I'm actually learning how to use Java at the moment. So that's one thing. That's one new thing I've learned
How
so far.
how did you spin it in the interview? Right, one of the requirements for the role is Java, and you're saying, "Yeah, I'm not really a Java
I
developer."
actually, it's not. It wasn't a requirement.
Okay,
Yeah, it wasn't a requirement. It was just nice to have. But then when actually started working, they now asked me, do I actually want to work on this Java project? I'm like, why not? Why not?
why not?
Right.
Yeah.
So I personally I like to learn. My main passion, well, is to build things from scratch, and also
Hmm.
whatever opportunity I have to build things from scratch, I'm always happy to learn. So aside from back end, I also do front end as well, as you already know. But
Yeah.
then my front end is not like in my professional, my nine to five, my
Hmm.
daily
Hmm.
9 to 5 is more like a
Yeah.
side thing. But then I always like to learn, so I also do front end. I'm learning Java at the moment. I use different JavaScript frameworks, Vue, React, React Native, and all that stuff. So it keeps me busy, I would say, and also
Yeah.
it opens more opportunities to me as well. Because tomorrow I
Yeah.
could decide, okay, you know what, I do not want to be a backend developer anymore. I want to move to the front end, and I could easily do that because I already have knowledge of the front end because I do that myself.
So from what we said earlier, I think it in any role, especially as a software developer, you never actually stop learning, but it's
Yeah.
more about you sort of become more confident in your ability to learn and deliver, isn't it? Because I'm guessing when you start in your career, it's like, this thing's so difficult. Am I going to be able to learn it? Blah, 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 blah. But it's like when you've proven to yourself time and time again that, okay, yeah, you're going to pick this up, you just become more confident in your ability to pick things up and deliver. Is that what maturing in what maturing as a software engineer is? So it's not that you get to this point where you know everything. Obviously you know more as you grow in your career, but is the main thing there what I think it is anyways. I'm trying to verify for me, it's more about your confidence and your approach to learning.
Do you mean like growing as a software engineer?
Yes.
Um, Growing as a software engineer. So in maybe like going from like a junior to a senior, I would say, well, yes, it has to do with the knowledge you have, the experience, and yeah, the more you know, the better developer you are. But then, as a senior developer, aside from the knowledge that you have, and also your architectural skill and yeah, or experience. I would also say, in addition to a senior developer, you should be able to make more senior developers,
Mm,
if you get
give
what I
back,
mean. Yes, basically give back. So
pay it forward.
that's exactly pay it forward. So that's one more thing I would say you need to be added to the list, aside from just
Yeah.
your experience and all that stuff. You should also be able to make more senior developers as well. You should be able to dispense this knowledge that you've been gathering for the past few years, and then be able to make other people senior developers as well. Be able to mentor them.
Just from a sort of a product person's, perspective, it's like when I get on a new project and there's a problem, right? There's a product, we're trying to build.
Yeah.
It can be daunting, especially earlier on in my career where I was like, I have to understand the customers, I have to segment the market. I need to understand the problem, I need to, build the solution, build out the features. And obviously, earlier on, it seemed a more daunting task. But for me personally, I feel what has really helped me grow, especially working in different industries or working on different products, right? It's always different, right? There are going to be different nuance. There are going to be nuances about each, uh, if each like every other project you get on. But I think what helps me is sort of just having the confidence in myself that whatever I need to learn, I'll be able to learn. I'll be able to pick it up. I'll be able to sort of uncover and unpack, you know, the customer's pain point, or build
Mhm.
out my roadmap successfully, or identify the features for the MVP, or things like that. So I think for me personally, I feel like that's a major aspect of maturing in career. It's less about the technical stuff, but now I'm bringing it down to the mental, right? You're
Yeah.
always going to be learning new stuff. Yeah, like as a product person, I'm always doing research, right? I need
Hmm.
to understand this industry. I need to understand this type of customers. I need to understand this technology, right? So it's kind of like before, when I was, when I was just starting my career, I was like, what is this? It's like I'm worried about the things I need to learn, but now I still need to learn a lot, and I'm
Hmm.
learning more as I'm going. Obviously, my prior knowledge helps me pick things up faster,
Yeah.
but I think it's what's reinforces me having the like confidence in myself that I'm going to be able to do this, and just taking it a day at a time rather than doubting myself and worrying, wow, this is a lot. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to relate that to yourself as a software engineer. You've come into a new industry, you're learning a new language, but I think you can't see it, but you're not worried, right? But imagine a junior, someone just getting into the industry as a software engineer, trying to learn a new language. From what I found, what I've heard is like, they are so worried about the language, and I think it's not being worried about the language, right? You're going to pick it up as time goes in the process, but it's being confident that you're going to be able to do that. That's what's going to help you sort of pick up. I don't know if what I'm saying is clear. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Being confident definitely helps, and I would also say being passionate about it as well, because being a
Yeah.
software engineer is it's not always it's not always something. It's not always easy, and it's not always happy moments every time. There are
Hmm.
always problems because you're a problem solver, right? So there's always a problem
Yeah.
that you have to solve. So if being a software engineer isn't something that you're not passionate about, then you wouldn't really find it interesting, so to speak. Because take for example, the whole code base doesn't work because you forgot that you didn't put the dollar sign somewhere.
Hmm.
That could take you like a few hours to find out that okay, I forgot to put the dollar sign somewhere.
You're
You
speaking
know?
from experience. That's happened
Yeah,
to you a couple of
exactly.
times.
Yeah, it happened to me like two weeks ago actually. Spent like two
Wow.
hours just to find out that I didn't put a dollar sign somewhere.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so when you come into those type of frustrating situations, if you're not really passionate about being a software developer, then it wouldn't really help you. You know,
Hmm.
you just find it very frustrating and think about why did I even choose to come down this path in the first place.
Hmm.
So being passionate as well, I will also add to that, would help you to grow within the industry, within the
Hmm.
industry as well. And yeah, I would say that's the only thing I want to add to that one.
So on a mindset level, confidence, passion
Yeah,
are are major keys, right?
yeah,
In sort of moving forward in your in your career. I
yeah,
think that's fair to say. I
yeah,
think that's fair to say. Enjoying and let's sort of break it down, isn't it? Like when we say passion is on a if we try to break that down, right, it's more about enjoying what you do on
yeah,
a daily basis,
yeah,
right? For me, for example, that's like, you know, actually being inquisitive about this product,
mhm,
empathizing, how can I use this product to solve a problem? What is the problem here, right?
yeah,
That's the passion, right? It's not because for a long time I kind of struggled with what passion is, is it just like some magic moment, or when you break it down, it's finding a way to enjoy what you're doing in on a daily basis, finding a way to enjoy the process. That's what breeds passion,
mhm,
isn't it? So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think one last thing I just wanted to touch on, and this is sort of bringing it down to the mindset level of being in the IT industry, is the imposter syndrome. Right? I
yeah.
have, I think I deal with it still on a daily basis, right? And that's why I'm saying, is that self doubt. You know, am I going to be able to figure this problem out? Uh, um, am I going to build a good enough product that users are going to like?
Yeah.
You know, all those things. And I'm sure as a developer as well, you have your own sort of doubts. How do you personally deal? How do you deal with the imposter syndrome? How, because like I said, I don't think it completely, it goes away completely. Different scenarios come up that makes it like pop its head up, isn't it? And it's
Yeah.
just finding more effective mechanisms or systems within myself to sort of push, that doubt away. And just like I said, having that confidence in myself. So do you have any sort of, how do you breed that mindset? How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, it gets better as time goes on. When I started
Hmm.
as well, it was really bad. It still happens to me now. There's some tasks that are assigned to me, and I'm like, yeah, it's a bit of a big one.
You don't show, you just a poker face.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
got this.
there's like yeah. I literally do not know what to do at this point. That's what I'm gonna.
Yeah,
That's basically what's going to be ringing in my head. I
yeah.
have no idea what to do.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
and then that's one of it. Another one
Hmm.
is I always work with smart people because I started in the industry quite young as well compared to other people. But
Yeah,
but now people are even younger than me anyway. To
yeah,
start, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That
So yeah,
13-year-old doing
yeah,
now,
exactly. Yeah, so I can't really say that anymore. But from my
yeah,
experience, people that I actually work
yeah,
with usually like 5 to 10 years older than I am usually.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they're way smarter than I am. They're older than I am. They have more experience. So I'm
That
always
feeds
thinking,
into the imposter syndrome as well. Like,
exactly,
am I going
exactly,
to get caught out?
exactly. Because
Yeah.
they just say things. I'm like, oh, it's the first time I'm hearing that. I have no idea what you're talking about. So that happens. That usually happens a whole lot of times. But
Mm-hmm.
then, how do I deal with it? Well, the first one about having tasks that I cannot. I believe I can. Well, I wouldn't say I believe I cannot solve. At that moment, I don't know. I literally would not know what to do. Based on my experience, that's usually how it is. When you have a very big task or a very huge feature that you have to implement, it always looks very impossible. But the thing is, when it comes to software development, everything is possible. You just need to think about the best way to solve it. So that's
Yeah,
what I usually think about. Even though it looks like, okay, I mean, I have no idea how to solve it at the moment. But
yeah.
as when it comes to software engineering, everything is possible.
Hmm.
So that's what I always that's the mindset I always try to have. And then for the second one, people having more knowledge than I am, you just ask them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't know, you just ask them.
yeah.
That's
I think that's yeah. Go on.
that's the reason why you have a team, right? You able to bounce off each other's knowledge. So if there's
Hundred
something that
percent.
you do not know, you ask your teammate. Maybe he
Yeah.
doesn't. Maybe he wouldn't tell you, but he would give you, maybe you like share some resources with you, maybe like a
Nudge you in
book,
the right direction.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe a book or a tutorial on YouTube or something. You share with you. So if you don't know, you ask. So
I
those
think
that's
that's the
yeah,
yeah. Go
that's
on.
that's how I
Sorry.
that's basically how I solve those problems.
I think that's kind of what an agile environment is for. That's what the agile methodology is for as well. Sort of encouraging and facilitating a collaborative team, right?
Yeah,
Where you sort of work together. Not You don't have to have all the answers, isn't it?
yeah,
So like in my company currently, we have other product owners, right? And what I tend to do, right, when I get to a certain point, probably when I'm still at my discovery, right? Just before I sort of when I get to a milestone, right? A personal milestone. So probably I want to validate the way I'm thinking about a problem or what I've sort of found out.
yeah,
I'll just like have a meeting with, one of my colleagues and what do you think about this?
yeah.
And, ever so often, like, they nudge me in the right, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And I think in the past, in my career, I'd have felt, okay, that's a knock on me for not
So
knowing
no,
that,
yeah,
and I was hesitant about asking people. So I was like, let me just go do this work, do something that everyone is going to be impressed with. But I feel like you said, collaborate, ask people, share, let people help build up your solution in a way. It's always ideal. And I guess even for software engineering, that's why things like um peer review, what's that thing
yeah,
called,
yeah. Peer review, yeah,
peer review, that's
yeah,
why it's like it's encouraged in the industry, why people are developers are asked to work in teams and stuff like that,
yeah,
because two heads are better than one, three heads probably better,
yeah,
but not too many
mhm,
because it'd be chaos.
yeah,
But effectively, I think it's the same thing. Not sort of having those high expectations of yourself to know everything, because you possibly can't,
mhm,
you know accepting feedback from other people, collaborating, like you said, and having that confidence in yourself, that passion, right?
yeah,
That believing in yourself. I'm going to come up with something that's good enough, right? And I guess when you bring it down to design thinking, for example, that's why it's an iterative process. You come up with a plan, probably have your prototype, you go check with someone, right?
yeah,
Then you come back. There might be a better way to do it, a better technology to apply, a better
yeah,
framework to apply, such and such. But I think that the major takeaway is the imposter syndrome is a massive, massive thing,
mhm,
and it doesn't ever go away. But I just think we just develop better coping mechanisms for that. And like you said, is being confident in yourself, having passion, and collaborating, seeking help around you. Not being too big to sort of seek the help that you need around you, and using your team the way it should be used. So
yeah.
yeah. Anyways, I think that's all I have today.
That was a nice one.
um, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we've covered most of the things, like that we wanted to from the beginning of this, and uh, probably we might have another session if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, to expand on some of the things we've mentioned, but honestly, man, thanks for your time. Uh, Thanks for your knowledge. I think the things you've definitely said, it would definitely help people in the industry who are trying to get in, especially that entry point.
Yeah.
They'll be able to empathize with a lot of things you're saying and relate with you, and hopefully, feel better. It doesn't get easier, to be honest. The workload is the workload, but it's
Yeah.
like if you feel better about something, if you find a way to be passionate about something, like you said, you can deal with it better, isn't it? Was there any other thing you sort of wanted to cover?
No, I think that's it, to be honest.
That's it.
Yeah.
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 Nice one, Roland. I think, well, Mark as well. So,
Yeah.
nice speaking to you, man. Take
Yeah.
care.
Thanks for
Yeah.
inviting me.
Cheers. All right, man. Take it easy.
All right.